It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. Karen Bass was out in the Valley today with former LA City Councilman Paul Krikorian, who now has an advisory role on big special events like the World Cup and the Olympics. So even though he's termed out, he's still getting a beautiful local government salary. And Karen Bass had a little gaggle with reporters talking about the Olympics, and they wanted to take questions about the Olympics. And what do you know? Every question wasn't about the Olympics as much as it was about the budget, the cuts, the layoffs, including layoffs to transportation.
I can't help but tell that we're at a place where, it's about transportation. And so the list of layoffs.
The reporters are almost mic'd for this presser, which is an improvement.
The list of layoffs and also the elimination of vacant positions, the largest number in there is for the transportation department, 106. And I'm wondering, why you felt that was, tenable in this time?
You know, there are a lot of different departments in the city. A lot of them, we don't really know what it is they do. Transportation, you know what they do. They're the ones that are supposed to be paving the streets, fixing the sidewalks. And yeah, LA sidewalks are a big, giant problem. They're also a big, giant liability. And part of the reason the city is broke is because people keep hurting themselves on LA sidewalks, and then they rightly sue the city. The city settles for every single one, even if it is frivolous. And now the city needs a whole lot of money.
Well, let me just tell you, I really could look at the proposed layoffs in each department with that same vantage point.
What does the Department of Civil Rights and Equity do? We don't know.
We do not want to see the layoffs take place.
What's the Department of Youth Development do? We don't know. Those departments didn't get many cuts.
But as I mentioned yesterday, by charter, the budget was due yesterday. We are certainly hoping.
It's an incomplete document. Look, Karen Bass submitted a budget. She had a whole bunch of numbers that freaked out a whole bunch of people, including those 400 civilian positions at LAPD, which is going to greatly impact the performance of LAPD because now sworn officers are going to have to come off the beats and into the office to fill those roles, most likely on overtime, which is another thing that can bankrupt the city.
We are certainly hoping that over the next month and a half, we will.
So she turns in the budget with a whole bunch of layoffs, knowing that, well, I had to turn it in today, but don't worry, we're going to amend it and we're going to find our way around it. And maybe I'll get a bailout.
We are certainly hoping that over the next month and a half, we will be able to come up with solutions that will avoid the layoffs, or that the number of individuals or positions eliminated will be significantly reduced by other solutions that we might find.
And what are those solutions?
Some revenue sources that you can identify.
Well,
she was asked, are there other revenue sources that she can identify? Like what? Maybe using that measured ULA money that has completely destroyed real estate in Los Angeles? You know, the quote unquote mansion tax that also included commercial buildings and rental housing. And so now nobody wants to buy or sell apartment buildings in this city. And that revenue is way lower than they thought it was and has done a lot of damage. And when you're talking about a place like the Palisades, you have a whole lot of real estate that does not want to get done because of that tax.
Well, the new revenue sources that we put into the budget basically essentially lowered the deficit down from where we started. Well, where we started was at $1 billion. We were able to lower it to $800 million.
I love this. We're totally broke, but don't you worry. Through some fancy financial footwork, instead of being $1 billion in a hole, we're only $800 million in the hole. Didn't me do a good job?
So where we are right now, we've already accounted for new revenue sources. Now, having said that, I am hopeful that there might be some assistance from the state.
Oh, by the way, one of the revenue sources that they're looking at is the easiest way for them to tax themselves out of the situation, because a tax that's actually a tax is something that has to be voted on or has to be put to the citizens, and it'll probably get rejected. But they're able to, without any voter approval, go after trash fees. And they're going to massively jack up those trash fees on every homeowner in the city of Los Angeles, including myself. So start paying attention to your DWP bill.
From the state, we obviously couldn't present that in a budget that was due yesterday because, like I said, I am hopeful. We are waiting for the May revision of the budget. But as we all well know, the budget could be revised and saying that the state has the revenue to provide a supplemental, or the exact opposite could happen.
It's more likely going to be the opposite.
The other thing, of course, that really introduces a lot of uncertainty into the situation is what is happening in Washington.
And Conan Nolan then gets to ask questions. Conan Nolan from NBC4, one of the best political reporters out there. Every press conference sounds better when he's at it because he asks questions and he don't give a damn.
Can we talk about that for a moment? So the governor has said they're not sure what revenue sharing they're going to get out of Washington.
Exactly.
We might see several municipalities and the state of California get federal funding cut off because of sanctuary policies. And one of those things could be grants that come from the federal government to fund our policing agencies. And because LAPD follows Special Order 40 and the city of Los Angeles is a sanctuary city, you could see a massive cut to the LAPD budget because of those policies, which it doesn't look like Karen Bass is looking to reverse anytime soon. So that money's also going to have to be filled by the general fund. So we might even be broker. And the state's not going to have a whole lot of money to bail us out if they're getting cuts too, because we're a sanctuary state.
Exactly.
Likely far less than what they've gotten in the past. So I hate to be too negative on this, but this could get worse.
He hates to be a Debbie Downer, but you know what? We need Conan Nolans in here.
Too negative on this, but this could get worse in terms of the 1,600 positions based on what money has been held out of Washington, not just for Sacramento, but for you.
So Conan Nolan, again, I've tried to play you the audio and boost their sound, but they don't mic the reporters. But Conan Nolan asks, based on the threat of cuts from the federal government and the fact that the state budget might not be as sound as we thought it was, these layoffs may get worse. It might be way more than 1,600. Karen Bass?
It is possible that it gets worse. That is absolutely the case. But again, the budget that I released yesterday was based on where we are. Now the council will be involved in making any adjustments.
And if you've seen any of the statements from people like Eunice Hernandez, they want adjustments, all right. She wants to make sure that those layoffs do go to sworn police officers because she would like to fund a whole bunch of nonsense.
But we're going to be trying to see if it is possible to get additional revenue.
Why have police officers that can put gang members in jail when we can have the gang reduction programs that included the city of Los Angeles funding an actual criminal gang?
But we're going to be trying to see if it is possible to get additional revenue. We also are working in partnership with our colleagues in labor because we have to look for every possible solution.
Yeah, good luck negotiating with the public employee unions, all of them, to take pay cuts or defer raises. And that's just not what they're about. That's not what any union is about. A union's goal is to increase the salaries for their members. That's what they do. Then they get more dues. So good luck with that. And in fact, Conan Nolan has a reply to that as well.
What is your message to SEIU 721? Because they said they're going to fight every position.
I understand that. My message to SEIU, as a matter of fact, we've been talking to SEIU since January as we saw the situation getting worse. And so my message is we will work in partnership and we will work to solve and close the budget deficit together.
Yeah. See, the problem is, too, politicians like Karen Bass or Barbara Lee up in Oakland, they're beholden to these unions because these unions are the ones that gave them the money and gave them the organized votes to get them into office. So good luck fighting with them. Now, Karen Bass was also asked about the fact that she is planning to do a big layoff when it comes to civilian workers in the LAPD. which means you have a whole bunch of staffers that support the police in many different ways that if they're laid off, those jobs just don't go away. They're going to have to be filled by sworn officers on mandatory overtime. And we've already seen what's gone on in San Francisco. San Francisco spends $88 million a year on just mandatory police overtime because they're understaffed. And even though they're not getting rid of sworn officers, which we applaud Mayor Bass for that, this is still going to hurt.
Jeff and then Dave.
In terms of the proposed budget, there are not cuts.
By the way, you want to save some money? We don't need Karen Bass's deputy mayor that says, you talk next, then you talk. Karen Bass could do that herself.
Jeff and then Dave.
In terms of the proposed budget, there are not cuts to sworn police officers at the LAPD. However, civilian jobs will be impacted.
That's right.
The chief this morning says that folks might have a harder time getting traffic reports or
oh, that's a problem in the traffic hell capital of the world, Los Angeles. I haven't been around the world, but I can't imagine anywhere that's worse than here.
Folks might have a harder time getting traffic reports or when they file for a police report, getting copies of that.
We won't be able to get our police reports on time. They won't be able to give out traffic reports. You won't know when there's an overturned big rig on the 405.
What do you want to say to folks, especially here in the Valley where there are so many traffic crashes and folks need to get their reports?
I love that. What do you want to say to residents of the Valley where there are so many traffic crashes? The Valley has a lot of accidents, but so does the West Side. So does the East Side. Drivers in all parts of LA are equally awful, myself included, which is why my 5-year plan and my goal in life is to not have to drive. I'd love to sell my car, and I'd love to live somewhere where I can walk anywhere. And if I need to get a ride somewhere, I can use Waymo, or I can get the wife to drive me. I hate driving. It scares me. I see the accidents that are on the freeway every single day, and I don't want that to be in my life. It's the number one source of stress in my life is the traffic, which tells you that I live a pretty stress-free life, and I'm very lucky and I'm very blessed. That being said, there's always room for improvement, and for me, it's not driving in LA.
And folks need to get their reports. And then secondly, is that going to impact civilian jobs that assist detectives in solving cases as well?
Yes, see, there are also people that assist the detectives. It's like you watch CSI. There's someone that's in the crime lab doing zoom and enhance. If there's no one doing the zoom and enhance in the crime lab, then how are we going to solve all these crimes?
Well, that's something that I have to discuss with the chief in terms of exactly.
She's mad that Chief McDonald talked out of turn and didn't just defer to the mayor. But you know what? Good luck getting rid of him. He has the backing of the officers. He's a stand-up guy, and he should speak out when his budget's being threatened, as every department head should. But it's a lot easier to justify the budget of the police, even though some people wouldn't like that, Ulysses, as opposed to the Department of Youth Development or the Family Workforce. There are so many departments that you don't know what they do. I don't know what they do. Nobody knows what they do because they're shell departments to funnel money to politically connected nonprofits. And that's where the budget cuts should start.
Well, that's something that I have to discuss with the chief in terms of exactly what positions they will be. But we also had a choice. We certainly were not going to impact sworn officers as it is now.
And I will say, it's irritating to me how this story was reported everywhere, including here, by the way, because the official press releases say that there were no cuts to police. And there were no cuts to sworn police officers, and that is true. But the projected layoffs, the proposed layoffs, show 400 cuts, 400 job losses in civilian operations in the LAPD, more than any other department. And yes, LAPD is bigger than every other department, but I think there might be more creative ways to solve that budget crisis. And there might be more departments out there that are redundant or straight up useless or straight up corrupt.
We certainly were not going to impact sworn officers as it is now. And you very well know we don't have enough sworn officers right now. So the only place that we...
It's amazing how much damage was done thanks to people like Nithya Raman, who called to defund the police in 2020, and the Black Lives Matter Los Angeles people that started all this nonsense, where morale got so bad that people got out of Dodge, they transferred to other departments, and we're still 5 years later trying to recover. You know, Eric Garcetti promised when he sold the Olympic Committee on LA that we'd have 1,200 LAPD officers by then. Nope.
So the only place that we had to go were the civilian positions, and obviously we'll do that very surgically to make sure that the civilians that...
You know, I can think of a whole bunch of other ways. You know, how about we lease out LA City Hall? How about all the city council people work remote and you do something with those buildings, sell them off, turn them into a homeless shelter, something, make it a giant WeWork, sell it off, get rid of it. Very little gets done there to begin with. They also have 2 city halls. How come we're paying for Van Nuys City Hall, which they almost never use, and the LA City Hall?
Very surgically to make sure that the civilians that are laid off, if we get to that, which I am certainly hopeful we will not.
If we're talking transportation, and I proposed this before and I'll propose it again, I think any drivers for city council members or the mayor, any cars for the city council or the mayor, wipe all of that out. All of these people tell us till they're blue in the face how great LA Metro is, and they should have to take it on their own dime. Or have them work on Zoom, then they don't have to go downtown LA. We could sell LA City Hall. Let's start getting creative, folks.
If we get to that, we will have to look at the ones that would have the least impact to public safety, because that is our number one priority.
Are they concerned about the solve rate? I mean, a few years
Concerned about what?
The solve rates?
No, not right now. No.
Go, Dave, and then...
Well, we'll wait to see who we lay off and how it impacts crime before we start to worry about it. Well, we're just getting started here. Karen Bass got asked a whole bunch of questions, and I'll give her credit for holding this impromptu press conference about her budget cuts and the layoffs. We'll hear from what she has to say about the fire budget, especially considering she fired the fire chief, Gavin and a potential bailout, homeless spending, sidewalk liability, and so much more. Hey, maybe you've got some ideas here. If you have some creative solutions how LA City can trim their budget, give us a call. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Any ideas? How would you, if you're in charge of this massive behemoth of a city, start trimming the budget without, I don't know, having to get rid of people paving sidewalks and people assisting the police? 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. City of LA is facing an $800 million budget shortfall. Karen Bass has proposed layoffs of 1,600 employees, a quarter of that LAPD civilian jobs, which could severely impact public safety. My question to you at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222 is this. You got any better ideas? You got any more creative ideas on how we can trim the budget and bring in more revenue for the city of Los Angeles? Because the people in charge don't really know what they're doing. Maybe you have a better idea. 800-222-KABC. Let's start with Patrick in Long Beach. Patrick, hello.
Hey, Randy. You know, these NGOs, these non-government organizations, these nonprofits, they're sucking billions of dollars that have been unaccounted for. They should be defunded. The raises that all Karen Bass gave everybody of 100%, they should all be rescinded. There should be merit-based raises and pay for teachers. The state needs to put failing forward. You need to be a meritocracy. The best and the brightest deserve to get paid. The rest are just leeches on our society.
I think you make some really strong points, Patrick. Thanks so much for the call. And to that point, Karen Bass said the one piece of the budget she wasn't going to touch was the homeless budget. And in fact, you know, Kenneth Mejia, the city controller, likes to show how transparent he is. He has a website that shows you what the budget looks like and how it compares to the budget for last year. You can go to budget.lacontroller.app, and he shows you the big bar with police and fire and sanitation. He does not actually show you what the budget is for the homeless. He doesn't show it anywhere. He does show other special purpose funds, which I'm sure is where it's lumped in. But yeah, we're not seeing any trimming to the homeless budget. And that's where we know the majority of the waste, fraud, and abuse is, because the homeless problem was better when we didn't spend any money on it. Let's go to Michael in beautiful San Diego. Michael, hello.
Hey. So,
Hey.
porn is bigger than all sports combined. So tax the nudie bars and tax porn.
Now, how exactly would that go? If you have to give the stripper $1, would you have to give her $1.25?
Depends on cup size.
That's great. Thanks so much for the call, Michael. Appreciate it. But yeah, if we're looking to find creative ways, they call it excise taxes. Of course, those mostly go towards oil because less people are consuming tobacco now. But maybe we got to tax the old pornography. Your phone's going to have a quarter slot, and every time you go on Pornhub, you got to put in a quarter. That will bail out the city real quick right there. I don't even know if they shoot porn in Chatsworth anymore, because isn't it all just done on iPhones and anywhere? 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay on hold to get to you next. We're looking for creative solutions to increase revenue and trim the budget in Los Angeles so we don't have to lay off a bunch of civilians at LAPD. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you're on hold, stay on hold to get to you next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. We're taking your phone calls right now at 800-222-KABC. Karen Bass took questions from reporters today about her $800 million budget deficit and her proposed 1,600 layoffs, including to transportation and not to LAPD sworn officers, but to LAPD staff that are not sworn officers, the civilian workforce, which could hamper the ability of LAPD to do their job. You got any more creative ideas on how we could cut the budget and raise revenue in the city of Los Angeles than that? Give us a call, 800-222-KABC. Let's go to Scott in the Hollywood Hills. Scott, hello.
Hi, Randy. I listened to the entire speech. I then read the transcript of yesterday's State of the City. That lady goes through an hour without mentioning the elephant. The elephant in the room in this city is the unfettered drug dealing. It's the cause of almost all of our ills. It's the cause of homelessness. It's the cause of crime. It's the cause of more than half of LA fire department emergency calls. It's causing the copper wire. Everything could be traced. So much can be traced back to the drug problem, and it's unfettered. Open dealing at MacArthur Park. So open and so unfettered, the police are afraid to go into the northern part of that park at night, even during the day. But at night, apparently, it is a combat zone. She goes through an hour with her speech and not a mention of the drug problem. We don't have I'm a lawyer. I transferred my office to Burbank. There's no drug problem there. There's no tent cities there at all. There's no tent cities in unaffordable Beverly Hills or Glendale. So why do we have it? Why do these encampments stop at the borders of our neighboring cities? It's because she is tolerating unfettered drug dealing and drug usage.
And you're totally right about that. And she'll be up front. She doesn't believe that we should be doing anything about that. She thinks the biggest mistake was in the 90s when we got tough on drug crimes and started putting people in prison for things like crack cocaine. She considers that to be a huge mistake, and she says that's why she ran for mayor, because she was concerned that that's what we were going to do in the city of Los Angeles when it comes to the fentanyl and the meth that's out there. That is her ethos, and it doesn't make a damn lick of sense.
But how can it be a mistake when a person is dealing drugs They know the risk. They know they're committing a felony. They take that bargain, and then they get put in prison after accepting that bargain. They've lost that bet. They're not victims. The people that are victims are the 7 people a day bent over and then dead, and nobody even knows that they're dead until the tent starts to smell of a cadaver.
You're totally right. And you know what?
We don't have these.
Scott, that number has only gone up under Karen Bass. When she started as mayor, it was 5. Now it's 7. And that's with all the harm reduction that's out there and all that. We're giving Narcan to everybody. And they're literally paying through our budget, through a crew that's supposed to drive through in a little go-kart through MacArthur Park to pass out Narcan, and still everyone's dropping like flies because these policies don't make any sense. Things worked a hell of a lot better when drugs were illegal in the state and we enforced our drug laws in the city of Los Angeles. And while we did pass Prop 36, and it seems like all the surrounding counties are doing something about that, we're still not letting our police do what they need to do when it comes to drug dealing and drug crimes in the city of Los Angeles. And that's a major problem that you're totally right. She didn't even give 1 second to.
And we're also financing drugs because we're handing out needles and meth pipes that, according to John Alley, who owns the building at Langer's, he says that they're exchanging meth pipes and needles for more drugs.
Oh, no, you're totally right about that. So this is the program that we're doing. We pass out things like 2 needles. And instead of like a needle exchange, we give you 2 needles at a time. And what they do is they sell one of the needles for a hit of fentanyl. That we are propagating this crisis. We are making it worse. And it is either negligent or criminal or intentional, but it's completely unacceptable. Thanks so much for the call, Scott. Really appreciate your call. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. Let's go to Linda in Culver City. Linda, hello.
Hi, Randy. I think we need to get rid of all the consultants that the city's paying. If you can't do your job, you don't need to hire a consultant to do it. Make the people who have the job do the work. Second thing is all of the road diets and the maintenance of the painting of the streets and the delineators and all the thousands of millions of dollars put into these stupid road diets. Toss those off the budget. Go back to old budgets. Look at what we had for people in departments, and let's get back to basics. Toss out the emergency manager who screwed up the fires. Toss out the Department of LA DWP Water, who obviously didn't do her job either. That salary will save us a lot of money. Just right there, you've almost got $1 million between the 2 of them. And back to basics on everything. All of these extra nonprofits that aren't producing results, employees not producing results, got to go. It shouldn't just be a whole department and miscellaneous layoffs for civilian workers. It should be the ones that aren't producing results.
We should totally be doing that. We should totally be on merit because there's a lot of people who are doing a great job and there's a lot of people who are doing a terrible job in this city. Those are great ideas, Linda. Appreciate it. And to her point on consultants, you know, a couple weeks ago, we played you the sound of the LA City Council debating borrowing a whole bunch of money to redo the LA Convention Center because everyone's going to Vegas and Anaheim and San Diego instead. And one of the things that I found fascinating was they've been talking about this for a better part of a decade. And they have spent over $50 million on just consultants. There still has not been a shovel in the ground and they spent $50 million. Yeah, that's usually a grift. And usually these consultants are ex-politicians or ex-politician aides. And it's kind of, you help me out, I help you out. And there's a grift going on right there. She's totally right about that. The road diets, that's another great idea. Unfortunately, in the city of LA, we just voted for Measure HLA, which means road diets on every street they improve from now on. We did this to ourselves. Let's go to Jerry in Burbank. Jerry, hello.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, thanks for having me on. Real quick, what they could do, a lot of things. Basically, if LA City would get rid of their homeless bureaucracy, that's about $1 billion a year. Get rid of that. Now they got a $200 million surplus in the city budget, and they can start privatizing things like the library services, like they've done up in Santa Clarita. They could privatize park maintenance. They could privatize DWP, break it up in the water and the power, and privatize that and sell it. The city convention center you're talking, downtown convention center, why don't they just lease it out to a company, let them run it, let the private company take care of it? So bottom line, if the city were to privatize a lot of stuff and eliminate stuff and duplication, get like a Doge, this city would be in a surplus.
It can be done. There's a lot of money to be spent here. There's better ways to be spending it for sure. Thanks so much for the call, Jerry. Appreciate it. And to his point, one of the things that we're spending a lot of money on, appropriations for library funds gets $340 million this year. They got $313 million last year. And while we all love the concept of libraries in the city of Los Angeles are unusable because they've been taken over by the homeless. So maybe instead of that money, we got to shut them all down. And we do what is already readily available is that free library app where every kid's book in the world can be on your phone for free. Because you know what? Everyone's got an iPhone. Everyone, even the homeless. Let's go to Stuart in Seal Beach. Stuart, hello.
Hi, Randy. Thank you for taking my call. We need $1 billion. So, cuts of small magnitude won't do it. And laying off lots of cops, which is the major department, would only cause substantial problem. What I think the city needs to do is look at condo conversion of apartment units that are under rent control. And I can tell you at $25,000 a unit, you'd get 100,000 units into conversion. That's $2.5 billion. I'd like the city union workers to support it. Otherwise, they're going to be laid off and we're headed to bankruptcy. Also, you would raise the property tax because you're converting low apartment units that are under rent control that don't have much value, and then you're putting them into condos where you're getting homeowners paying a higher property tax, but also developing equity in the future so they can have a retirement. It's a no-brainer. And if 200,000 landlords do it, it's $5 billion. And you can also have landlords still rent to some of the poorer tenants, but have it as a condo. So when they leave, they can make their money back. That is a solution that brings in billions of dollars and doesn't lay off a single employee in this city.
Now, that's the kind of creativity we're looking for. I love the spirit of that. Thanks so much for the call, Stuart. Appreciate it. There's a lot of things we can do. Maybe while I don't want us to be raising fees on every single kind of home purchase like we did with Measure ULA, how about we add a surcharge when private equity is buying homes or apartment buildings in Los Angeles to either flip them or evict everybody and jack up the rents. We know they're doing that in single family homes and apartment buildings. Maybe we need to have extra fines and fees on China buying any property in the city of Los Angeles, like the damn Tagger Tower. The fact that we can't find anyone to buy that property tells you what a mess the city of Los Angeles is. Keep the ideas coming, people. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you'd like to email us, you can do so at randykabc@gmail.com. Roger writes in and says, how LA can save money. How about we put all the homeless in the Coliseum, stop the wasteful spending on housing, force Newsom to repeal AB 5 and get more people working and paying taxes, cut wages and bloated pensions and benefits of politicians and public employee management. They need a massive haircut. Tax all migrant remittances, money sent out of the city, state, country by 35%. Fine heavily the parents of all children who commit crimes and do damage, no matter the child's age. Cut subsidies and tax breaks to businesses if they're only a small part of the economy. There's some great ideas right there. We'll hear more from Karen Bass at her budget press conference next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you'd like to email us, you can do so at randykabc@gmail.com. Ed writes in and says, hey, Randy, listening to the show, you mentioned consultants and stated they were previous politicians or friends. Wanted to let you know you are right on target. The way consultants work in California government and local government, it's not required to do an informal or formal bidding process to hire them. The process is basically based on who the politicians have received donations from. Yeah, that's where a lot of the grift is going. Let's hear what Karen Bass has to say on the idea that Gavin Newsom is going to give her a bailout.
Mayor, you're going to be going to Sacramento this week. You mentioned that in your State of the City. Several other cities in California are also facing very tough budgets. San Francisco, Oakland.
That's right.
Have you gotten any indication from the governor or top legislators that there is money available to help bail out Los Angeles, particularly given the fact that the state has its own budget crunch?
If the state has a budget problem and San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, and San Diego also are broke, why exactly are we special?
Well, first of all, we're not asking that the state bail out Los Angeles. We don't think we need a bailout.
You're literally going up there for a bailout. You know, another thing that Karen Bass was asked about was cutting transportation budgets when we know that a big source of the liability payouts are the broken sidewalks.
Jeff, Dave, and then Jose, and then we're done.
Mayor, one of the biggest challenges that you face are sidewalks, broken sidewalks. In terms of the liability, this year it's about $12 million or so. Nearly $2 million of it is from trips and falls. So if you cut more than 100 jobs, like the proposal says, if we cut back these jobs, do we leave ourselves at risk of more lawsuits?
Yes.
Well, first of all, we have got to repair our streets. So cutting those positions in and of itself was not going to solve. In other words, if all of those people continue to be there, and I certainly hope they will be, that's still not going to solve the issue. It's a much bigger issue than that, and we have to figure out how to deal with our infrastructure. It's actually one of the issues that I think charter reform really needs to look at, because it needs to be a long-term issue. And it's not just the liability part of it.
That's a big part of it.
It's the fact that in a lot of respects, our city infrastructure is crumbling, and we need to address it. Even our responsibility of property that the city owns that has fallen into disrepair. So a lot of work.
So maybe as the person in charge, you should do something about that. Maybe not spend $1 billion on the homeless that goes down the drain.
So a lot of work needs to be done. I wish it was as simple as what you described. I think it's even a much bigger issue.
Dave, and then Jose.
I want to go back to the fire department.
Sure.
So you've heard some of what Karen Bass had to say there when it comes to the layoffs, which she says aren't final, obviously, because she thinks she's going to get money from Sacramento. She's not. And the city council ultimately will hammer out who's going to get laid off. But it's not looking great. I think we got a lot of great solutions that came out of this audience today. The smartest audience in talk radio is right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC. And we're going to keep coming up with creative solutions and putting them out there, because there are better ways to run this city, because we know who's in charge right now. And when an election comes up, maybe we'll vote for different people. Maybe. Thank you all so much for listening. Get the podcast of the show at kbc.com/newsblitz. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.